When I first looked at it, I realized this wasn't just a regular program, check the boxes type of thing. This is kind of a little bit more of a deeper dive, just to kind of show kids what this really looks like.
Everybody wants to have fun, of course, but there's a limit to where being safe, getting hurt or hurting yourself, killing yourself, or killing others. So you got to be very responsible.
So at the beginning of the video, you see these kids graduating and you see them drinking, partying, everything that they want. Then you see them in the car and the driver driving. So the passenger says something to him and he looks over. You see the car come, they get hit, camera goes flying out of the car, the car is flipped over at this time, and you see a bunch of paramedics and everything coming and checking out everybody, make sure they're okay. Sadly, they weren't, but seeing what was all going on.
We wanted to target these kids. I mean, really any grade this could be appropriate for. And when I was looking at what this all involves, but I thought it was a great year for our freshman class because we told them, last year you're young kids, you're little kids still. Now we're looking at you, you're going to be a young adult, and you're going to see what young adults might be exposed to, and then be exposed to the dangers that high school students will be around. So that was kind of what I saw. My vision kind of was created from that.
The video was excellent. My understanding was an actual video from an actual accident. So it doesn't get any more real than that as far as the students being able to view the scene. And then also the production with the students playing the judge, the prosecutor, the defense, family members, victims, and the defendant himself in a wheelchair. It was pretty much spot on as far as what you would have in a preliminary hearing.
When you're trying to reach young people with a message, what better way than to engage them? And this really engages them because now they're playing the roles of the perhaps guilty party, or the defense attorney, or the prosecuting attorney, or the judge.
I think that it's a situation that I myself would never want to be in. I would try my hardest to put myself in a situation away from that, not have the possibility of me being in that situation.
My older siblings, they're 19 and above,
Okay.
so they know what's right from wrong.
Sure.
However, my younger sister's only 12.
Okay.
So for me, I would try and get her out of that situation as fast as possible because I don't want her around things like that.
If our efforts, if all of this, what we do together, if what we do reaches one person and saves one life, my goodness, we have done a good thing. And so we'll continue to do that.
I've been out, I served papers on individuals, took people into custody, good friends that, got in trouble, and, you have to look at it, you have a job to do. Your friendship goes away a little bit, you feel bad for these people, but you have a job to do to keep this community safe. So, you take those people into custody, and then hopefully in due time they serve some time and realize that they gotta change their lives. You know what I mean? And hopefully we're a part of that we can help them, change their life, turn it around.
So it's very real. I would tell the students that keep in mind there's consequences to their actions, and there has to be accountability. I would tell them to be their own person, make their own decisions. Every one of them knows right from wrong, understand the peer pressure aspect of things, but to be a positive person, to be their own person, be a leader amongst their peers, and to guide their friends into making proper decisions.
And this is real life. Okay, these things happen every day. We were young at one time. I was young. Listen, we go through this. You have good friends. You go out. Yeah, we did some things. You drank a little. But you have to be responsible. You got to understand what can happen. The program shows that you get in accidents. You cause accidents. You can kill people. You can hurt yourself and kill people. So these kids growing up got to be realizing, got to be very responsible. Life is too short, okay? You got to be careful, and you got to understand what you're doing, your circumstances.
I mean, I've had a myriad of experiences in my career in administration and teaching, serving kids in rural, suburban, and urban environments. I mean, really, so all three in all different walks of life. And, at the end of the day, kids are kids, and it doesn't really matter what what area they came from, they all have their needs and whether, that need to be met before they can even instruct them. So that's what kind of has taught me in my experience and working with kids, whether they come from an affluent family or struggling paycheck to paycheck, they all have needs, and when you address those needs in the hierarchy of things, that's when success can happen.
I have big plans for the future for myself, and I want to bring my friends up with me. I don't want them to be stuck down below, so anything that can help, I would help them out if they were ever caught in a situation like that.
Don't get me wrong, it's very scary, but me, I think about my future a lot, honestly. I've thought about it since like 7th grade, about what college I want to go to, what I want to go for, and different things like that.
Can you call the court to order, please?
Magistratal District 53, 54, 57, City of Newcastle, County of Lawrence, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania will now come to order. The Honorable Brooke Masley presiding. All rise. God save this country.
All rise.
Counsel for the respective parties. Lawrence County District Attorney first shall now identify themselves for the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Peyton Rogers, Supreme Court number 47049, and I represent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania today at this preliminary hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. If it pleases the court, my name is Karen Murphy. I am defense counsel for the defendant, and my Supreme Court number is 8844.
Very well. Be advised that this proceeding is being recorded, and you should attempt to speak clearly into your microphone at all times. Seated to my left is court reporter Ms. Norris. Does the defendant want the entire information read, or are you waiving full reading of the information and then entering a plea?
Your Honor, we enter a plea of not guilty to all charges and all counts, and we will waive a full and complete reading of all of the information.
Very well. Let the record reflect that the defendant through counsel was waived a full and completed reading of the information and entered plea of not guilty to all charges. Is the Commonwealth prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
Very well. Call your first witness.
You may all be seated, please.
Commonwealth would call Pennsylvania State Police Corporal Officer Ogden.
Your name, please.
Corporal Ogden, Pennsylvania State Police.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear by the searcher of all hearts, Almighty God, that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please take your seat. You may proceed, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your name for the record, please.
Corporal Ogden, Pennsylvania State Police.
Officer, were you on duty the evening of June 7th, 2023 in Lawrence County, Pennsylvania?
Yes, Your Honor. I was on patrol near Wilmington Avenue, Newcastle, PA, Lawrence County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in full uniform and in a marked cruiser.
Officer, did you respond to an alert at or about that same time?
Yes, I did. At 1:24, I reported to the intersection of 8th and Burnside to an automotive collision.
Officer, skipping ahead from your police report, did you make any discoveries at the accident that have assisted you in your investigation, in particular a camera?
Yes.
And was that camera operable? Has it been preserved? And do you have it with you?
Yes, apparently the camera had been ejected from the vehicle and the lens is cracked. It had prior recorded video on it and was recording prior to. And even after the actual collision, in all of my years, I had never seen any type of evidence available like this before.
Your Honor, at this point, we would like to ask permission to mark this device as Commonwealth Exhibit 1 for identification purposes and for the dear witness for authentication and foundation.
You may proceed to affix a label to it, and the Commonwealth in this proceeding shall use numbers, and the defendant shall use letters to identify any exhibits. Please mark the camera with one of the stickers provided, Approved Reporter, as Commonwealth 1. You may now proceed to foredear the witness for foundation evidence for purposes of attempting to admit it as admissible evidence.
If it pleases the court, may I address the court?
Yes, you may, Counselor.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth has already shared this video with me before we came to court, and I have a copy of my own, and we will waive authentication, foundation, and any objection of its being admitted into evidence, strictly on what the prosecutor and I have agreed the court could view.
Is that correct, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, we have discussed this before the court was convened, and we have already agreed on exactly what the court may see and may not see of the video, as agreed upon proper admissible evidence. We have also taken the liberty of preparing the video so that the agreed upon admissible portions, and only those portions, could be viewed by the court during this proceeding and during our case in chief at this point in time.
So are you telling me both of you have agreed that I can see a certain portion of this video and that I can see it now at this point in time in the proceeding without any further testimony or foundation or objection?
For the record, Your Honor, that is our agreement.
For the record, Your Honor, that is our agreement as stated by the court.
Very well. Let the record reflect this agreement as stated and proceeded to make whatever technology arrangements you have at this point to play video so that everybody in the courtroom can observe it.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I would permit the officer to push the play button on the video. We have already determined the device, screen, volume, and visibility for everyone necessary in the courtroom.
Okay, we have a timeout now here aside from the preliminary hearing, and our technology people are ready to play, right? Okay, so when you're ready, you just let me know. Now, the officer would normally testify at length from his police report. We have abbreviated that for purposes of getting you in and out of here, but in the trial on February 22nd, the officer will testify fully. He won't do that today, and now we're going to go to the video.
Blaine Garrison. On December 2nd, 2006, my life changed forever.
Principal Brown.
It was excellent.
The graduates, baby! Oh, shit, you just hit that. Jake.
Drunk driving is not an accident. Every year, there are over 500,000 alcohol-related car accidents in the United States alone.
I'm fine.
Look at you!
Ask yourself if you've ever driven after having a few drinks, or gotten into a car with someone who has been drinking. If you answered yes, you were lucky. Lucky you didn't get into an accident. Lucky you didn't die. Lucky you didn't kill anyone.
Oh, so slow. It's like a submarine. Hello? Hey. So back.
Be smart. Make a better decision. Call a cab. Call your parents. Call a friend. Take someone's keys away if you have to. Just do whatever it takes. Just don't drink and drive. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I know, because it happened to me.
House lights, please, and we'll resume the preliminary hearing. Give the technology people a chance to stifle this. House lights, and then when you're ready to go, please resume the preliminary hearing. And pardon my interruption, you guys are great. You're doing a great job. Way to project.
I would now yield this witness to cross-examination, Your Honor. Your witness?
Thank you, Counselor. You may now cross-examine.
Officer, you did not personally observe any of these things at the crime scene until you investigated after. Is that correct?
Well, I observed the witness who was speaking to me during the interview.
I mean, most of this report is on information received other than personal observations. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I have my assistant bring up a portion of the video we saw?
Any objection?
We think it's a waste of time, but I have no objection, Your Honor.
Officer, I call your attention to what has been marked for identification purposes as DVD number 32. Officer, would you agree that generally, among other things, the defendant is charged with homicide by vehicle and homicide by vehicle DUI related?
Agree.
Would you also agree that in the segment we just viewed, the defendant was responding to the passenger's request to look at apparently, so she could videotape his face?
I don't have any opinion on that either way, and I would like to leave to the discretion of the magistrate or a jury someday.
Come on now, officer. Are you really going to sit here and testify under oath that you don't believe the passenger or someone else distracted the driver at the point of impact, rather than alcohol being the cause?
Objection, Your Honor.
What is the nature of your objection?
The question is argumentative. The witness has testified very clearly, and additionally, this is one of the ultimate issues for the magistrate, the court, and/or a jury someday.
Any response, Counselor?
Yes, Your Honor. We all know the difference in that decision could result in the decision that this is homicide by vehicle DUI related, which would result in a mandatory minimum prison time for the defendant regardless of his age. And I think it's important to have that answer.
As much as I see why you asked that question, and I may commend you for your zeal in advocating for your client, I tend to agree with the district attorney, and also mentioned that maybe your client should have thought about that before he got behind the wheel for a 4,000-pound metal object on four wheels, moving among other 4,000-pound metal objects moving on four wheels in the streets of our community.
Your Honor, although I am love to bring this further objection, I would call the court's attention to the fact that if I don't make this objection, it would be waived. I hereby move that the court recuse itself before the termination of this hearing for obvious bias.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, though the district attorney's office vehemently objects this motion, even being considered, much less granted, for several reasons, including without limit.
Save it, Counselor. Your recusal motion is denied. I have not prejudged, and I will keep an open mind on this issue, and I am only responded to take the well objection of the district attorney. Do you have any more cross-examination for this witness, Counselor?
Not at this time, Your Honor, or this forum. Sufficiency preliminary hearing. We will have a lot more to say and question if and when we get downtown, by way of pretrial motions and a jury trial, if the case of the Commonwealth lasts that long.
Objection, Your Honor. A simple answer without the speech would have done. This is highly unprofessional.
Now, both attorneys will direct their comments to the bench only, and perhaps remember that although professional attorneys are supposed to disagree, professional attorneys disagree without being disagreeable. That said, I would pay attention to this hint. Both of you, Commonwealth, call your next witness.
The Commonwealth would rest its case at this time, Your Honor. We believe we have more than adequately presented sufficient evidence that imposes on this court a duty to bind over all charges the Court of Common Pleas. Although I wanted to make sure that the court is aware that I have comments concerning bond, and if the court binds this case over, the Court of Common Pleas across the street.
Defense counsel, I am assuming the defendant will not be testifying today. Do you have any other evidence or witnesses that you would like to present in your case in chief?
You're correct, Your Honor. The defendant will not be testifying, although he renews through this counselor his plea of not guilty on all charges, especially homicide by vehicle DUI related. I don't think it's necessary, but I would like the record to reflect that I have admitted the DVD portion I have played during my case in chief, and I want to make sure the court accepts it as evidence for one of my pretrial motions if the court binds this case over.
I'm sensing there would be no objection from the Commonwealth, so your request is noted, and the evidence admitted, no objection, Your Honor. We would like just note for the record that it is the entire part of the entire video that has already been admitted in our case in chief. So noted, request of defense counsel is granted and evidence admitted.
Closing arguments. Commonwealth will go first.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth and our entire district attorney staff is a member of the same community. We have the same feelings, our families travel the same streets, we know accidents happen. The district attorney's office is certainly not unmindful of how the life of the defendant has and may well change significantly for the worse. No one is happy with these results for anybody, including the defendant. Although the district attorney's office is compassionate, this is an advocate system and the district attorney is the people's attorney. The district attorney is empowered, but much more obligated. The victims in this case and the victims in other cases in the future rely on our office and rely on our passionate advocacy to do what we do best and that we can prevent new cases, new accidents, new fatalities, new families torn apart by sending a message with this case and by taking a drinking driver off the road for as long as possible. Yes, it is very sad for him too, but he has made a choice. He's an intelligent young man, and he chose to take a chance on drinking alcohol and getting behind a 4,000-pound rolling metal missile and put it onto our streets to navigate among other 4,000-pound rolling missiles with other people in them who didn't make bad choices like he did. The district attorney has presented sufficient evidence, Your Honor. That's what this case is about. That's what a preliminary hearing, indictment, procedural rules are about. Has there been sufficient evidence, such that it should now go to a trial where the Commonwealth and the defendant too will have a fair chance and let a judge or jury do their job to decide whether he has been proven guilty of all the elements beyond reasonable doubt as founded by unanimous jury. The defendant has a whole range of due process protections. The community is relying on you, Your Honor, to protect them and at least to bind this case over.
Your Honor, I am an experienced attorney, and I will yield. The Commonwealth at this juncture has produced sufficient evidence to bind over homicide by vehicle and other related charges, but not homicide by vehicle DUI related. A close scrutiny of our video evidence will clearly demonstrate that the other passengers and other events were superseding, intervening major cause of the driver, my client, to look to the right as he was passing through that intersection. If that was the cause and not the alcohol consumption, it's the difference. And whether this young man does mandatory jail time regardless of his age and away from all his classmates, it's literally a game changer in his life. We don't believe there is sufficient evidence to bind that charge over, Your Honor. We will save the rest for a later time. Thank you for your patience, and thank you to the Commonwealth's attorney for their professional presentation.
I've listened to all the arguments and carefully observed the evidence. I want to commend both attorneys for their passionate presentation. The system works when we have skilled, passionate advocates advancing the cause of their individual clients. You both are a fine example of the professionalism in our local legal community. Congratulations to both of you for doing a good job. I would note, in agreement with the defense counsel, that I would have to be a heartless, numb human being, notwithstanding my sworn duty to not feel significant compassion for the defendant. However, the law is very clear when there has been only sufficient evidence presented. On all issues, including that very skillfully presented causation issue, I am required to bind the case over. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that all charges will be bound over for the Court of Common Pleas. Do either of you want to talk about the bond portion of today's proceeding?
Your Honor, in light of the carnage of the accident and the fatality issue, on behalf of the Commonwealth, we are demanding $250,000 cash bonding pending trial.
Your position, defense counsel?
Your Honor, my clients can afford a bond like that, and even if they could, it would take them a while to arrange it. We would note there is a lot of expert testimony and evidence we have to assemble. In this case, it could take months or more to come to trial and navigate through several pretrial motions and issues. All of that time, my client will be in jail. He will be separated from his students, friends, his teachers, his sport teams, and his academic pursuits. This comes as close to a punishment without a verdict as I've ever seen in my several years practicing criminal law. My client is not a flight risk.
I have to say, as painful as it was watching that video and binding this trial over, and my belief that was the beginning of a very bad day, I have now realized that this surpasses even that. I become a magistrate to do my duty and counselor in the light of a fatality issue. A significant bond must be required. The court sets $75,000 cash bond. As both of you know, you can always raise this bond issue in a motion across the street or downtown. Deputies, take the defendant into custody. Court adjourned.
All rise.
It was even eye-opening for me because, you know, even though this was directed for kids, this really could be an applicable message to everybody. And I saw, you know, just seeing the kids on stage, but also the kids in the audience, how intrigued they were by it and how they, you know, their attention was definitely what was going on stage. And, you know, that's real life. That's real life. That's what I saw. We brought a sample of real life into this school for kids to see. You know, sitting about this and talking in the classroom, that's one thing. You might reach a couple kids, but just to see this is really what would happen in these types of events was eye-opening, and I think for a lot of our kids really put things into perspective. I know it did for me as well too.
As far as my opinion on it, I do think that he was a little distracted. The girl did talk to him, the passenger did talk to him while he was driving. However, he still was drinking and driving.
I think the simple thing is to just, you know, at least ask them, try to pull over, and we could take it further from there. Maybe ask a cab, call a cab, or call our parents, and we could just figure it out from there.
I viewed that, first off, there was a drunk person driving a car. But there was someone in the passenger seat distracting that person away from the road more than they already were.
Just to, you know, warn them how dangerous it could be, and the impact I can set is that, you know, it could cause a lot of bad injuries and it could set a bad example for the rest of your life.
You know, we just got done with homecoming about a month or so ago. We have prom coming up. There's, you know, and unfortunately you hear in the news, you know, those with the students with license and, you know, young students driving, you see in the news, these issues happen, they pop up. Yeah, instruction and information, making that widely known, you know, I don't think you want to nag anybody because sometimes that might turn some people off, but just making sure the information is presented there. And you have to be clever about how you do it. You know, you always have to think, again, you know, what I tell our teachers is, like, if someone can walk into the classroom and who's uneducated, excuse me, if they can walk in there and do what you're doing, are you really teaching? So, I mean, I think what you guys have done to make a creative element on how to present this to the kids, it's impactful and it'll stay with them. But again, the follow-up is what you mentioned is equally as important.
I honestly think the passenger was at fault because at the end of the day, with alcohol in your system, you still know if somebody calls your name, you're gonna look.
Right.
I don't think the alcohol has anything to do with that. If somebody calls your name right now, you're going to look and see what they want to tell you. The alcohol has nothing to do with that.
I think it would be a combination of both. I think that the alcohol may have skewed their perception of what was really going on, and they look back hearing their name, not completely focused on what where they're trying to go.
Whether you believe the defendant or the prosecutor, whatever you want, whatever your opinions with, I want to talk to you about that and see why I want to get your opinion, to understand your opinion and understand why.
Just that there are always consequences to every action you take. Some can be very positive as far as putting in hard work to achieve something. The consequence would be the reward of what you were pursuing. But the consequences of a bad action or a bad decision could end up to a scenario or situation like we saw today. And like you were saying, it not only affects that person that makes that decision, but it affects everyone around him that he knows and people that he doesn't know, i.e. the victim in the crash or the people that died in this accident.
If my friend were under the influence, driving a car and I was a passenger, I would have to be dropped off at nearest location I could be. Okay. I would probably ask to maybe go somewhere really close so I can just get them away from the car as soon as possible.
You know, we have a lot of ways and forums to communicate with kids now, you know, more so than ever with Google Classroom, with our daily news, with social media. So there's always that thing, like for example, we have a school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports message here, and that's hammered into our kids so they remember. This is a similar message that should be hammered into them, and we will. I know we're working on a curriculum right now to integrate within our school. So this isn't something that's just going to be a one-off and it's like, okay, let's brush this to the side. We know we have a follow-up coming. We know we have some videos that, you know, so this is going to be something that we're going to, reminding our students, our freshman class as well too, as they prepare for the presentation in February. All that goes into this, and just, you know, like I said, follow up and use the tools that we have through social media, through Google Classroom and technology, just to continue hammering on this point. It's a real life lesson, and it's just as much as important as improving math scores and literature scores.
I thought it was very beneficial for, you know, the whole entire audience to be able to watch programs like this and actually see the instances they could be in and potential in the future. If they ever get into this situation, they can have a good idea and understanding of what would happen.
Holiday seasons cause more action, more people being out, of course. Your winter holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, but even in the summer times, you have your 4th of July holiday, summer holidays. Sure, people are out doing more things, and of course alcohol comes into play. I mean, you hate to say it that way, but it does. So these kids have to learn and know what can happen, and hopefully they understand that and, try to minimize any problems or any drinking problems.
I do think that the program was great. It was very informational. Like, I think more people should see something like that to understand the views that they would go, like the things they would go through.
I would tell them that they could get themselves seriously hurt, they could maybe hurt someone else, and overall, it could land them in prison for a very long time.
I think it was something with an impactful presentation we had. It always sticks with you. And I think in your conscience, when you go through life, whether you're a young kid or an adult, these things, when you're forced with these decisions, because let's face it, these kids are going to be presented with these types of situations where they're going to, that thought is going to come back, and it's going to be their decision to whether they want to choose or not. And like you and I discussed earlier, if this presentation saves one life, it was well worth it. Well worth it.